Hi guys, how are you doing? This is Sebastian from TechCentury and welcome to another initial e-bike review here on the channel. I'm on a roll here when it comes to bikes and I'm super excited about it. Today we're checking out the C20 Pro by Engwe. Now before we get started with this review, I want to mention that you should definitely check your local laws in your country to see if these bikes, or any bike for that matter, is permitted on public roads in your country, just to make sure that you're not getting into trouble, because every country has their own set of rules. Now I'm reviewing this bike from the perspective of an average consumer and I'm not a bike expert, and that's important for me that you guys are aware of this. The price of the C20 Pro currently sits at around 899 euros here in Germany, but definitely make sure to check the link in the description to find out the updated pricing for your country. In terms of engine, there's a 250 watt brushless Bafang rear engine on this bike and integrated in the rear hub basically. We have a 7-speed Shimano tourney shifter. The tires are 20 inch in diameter and 3 inches wide, which is great for going off-road as well. The battery has 36 volts and 19.2 amp hours, and the range is up to 150 km depending on the mode as listed by Engwe, but of course this depends on the terrain that you're in and of course also on your size and weight. We also have integrated front light, an integrated stand, integrated fenders, 6 hours of charging time, a backlit display, activation by key, and the weight of this bike is 25 kilograms. So even though it's rather small, it's actually quite heavy and you should definitely be aware of that. So now let's take a closer look at the bike itself, and I just noticed that the saddle is a little bit too low. So the saddle is easily adjustable. You can just basically pull it out to adjust it to the right height for you. And overall I just have to say that I think the C20 Pro in terms of design looks fantastic. I think it's a great combination between a futuristic design and also just very elegant. And of course with these wider tires, again, this is great for going off-road, which I think is the most fun part about this bike. Now of course this is not just an electric bike, but it's also a foldable bike, which I'll demonstrate later in this video. And this of course also makes it super easy to carry, for example, in the trunk of your car, so you can easily take it on vacation with you. But now let's actually take a closer look at the components of this bike. Now here on the left side of the handlebar is basically where you control everything. Here you can turn on and off the bike. You can engage, for example, also the integrated light on the front, which you can then also see on the display. And the display itself is quite big and also quite bright, which is super nice to see. Now there are no smart features here on this bike, so you don't have app connectivity, you don't have Bluetooth. But for me, honestly, this isn't really that important, because I just want to see the basic information like the battery status, the speed that I'm currently going, the distance that I've covered on this trip, and the different ride modes that I'm in. This is everything that you can see easily on this display here, no matter if it's sunny outside or not. So I think this display is a great solution for that. And again, it's easily visible no matter if it's at night because it's backlit, or also during daylight because it's quite bright. Then here on the right side we of course have the Shimano tourney shifter, and I think having 7 different gears on an electric bike especially is a great compromise. Because for example with a single speed bike, especially if you're riding at around 25 kilometers an hour, then the gear just isn't the right one for that, because it's tough to pedal that fast. But here it's great also, especially if you want to go, for example, uphill, then having 7 gears is fantastic, and I think this is a great compromise. I don't need 30 gears, but 7 is a great solution. Now one detail that I really like about the integrated lighting on this bike is that you can actually manually adjust the angle of the front light, and you don't even need a tool for that. That's super convenient to make sure that you get the biggest or the best visibility out of the light as you possibly can. One thing that I'm not the biggest fan of is that here, at least on the C20 Pro, you don't have a rear light, you basically just have a reflector. So if you want to be, for example, outdoors with this bike at night, I definitely recommend to pick up a light, especially also for the rear, to really make you visible, because that would be a challenge otherwise. Now, as previously mentioned, we have a 250 watt rear hub engine here on this bike, and you can choose between 5 different support levels here on the steering column. Now, on top of that, you also have an accelerator right here, but you don't actually have to use it, because if you're, for example, in the 5th level, which is the highest, and you then pedal, you basically immediately get support, which is great to see. Now, one thing to consider is that the 250 watt engine is relatively low when it comes to power. So for example, the Ep-2 Pro from Engwe has a 750 watt engine, which certainly has a lot more power. So especially if you're going up a hill and you're weighing around 90 kilograms like I am, then the support is limited. But then of course also this tourney shifter comes in really nicely, because then you can just go to a lower gear where you can still manage to get up the hill. And with a single speed, for example, this would be virtually impossible. Now, one thing that you have to be aware of with this bike is that you can't simply turn it on and off by pressing the button here on the steering column, because there's another step that you have to take first, and that is actually put in a key into the ignition. And the ignition is down here, and the location of the ignition really isn't that great, because first of all, you can't really see where you have to put the key in. You basically have to knee in front of the bike, which isn't that great, and there are also a lot of wires going around it, which also makes it difficult. And if Engwe sticks with the ignition solution here for this bike, then I would really like to see the ignition somewhere here, because that would be a way more convenient location for it. But of course, this also has the advantage that you can basically just remove the key, and then nobody can turn on your bike if they don't have the key, and they can't drive away, at least not with engine support. Manually, they could probably still do it. So you should definitely still use a bike lock with the C20 Pro. But now let's of course get into the main feature of this bike, because this is an electric folding bike. So you basically have a couple of different solutions to make this bike smaller. For example, if you want to put it in the trunk of your car. First off, you have this quick release right here, so that you can easily lower the seat, which is of course great and already saves you quite a lot of space. Then you have a quick release here on the handlebar, so that you can fold it down as well. Then you can see it basically looks like it's only half the size as before. And then last but not least, of course, you can also fold it. And that's simply done by doing this, and then you can fold it up. And another nice feature is that you can actually remove the battery of this bike to charge it outside of the bike. You can still charge it inside of the bike as well, but you just have 2 options for it, and that makes it a really great solution. So I really like the design of the C20 Pro. I like the feature set. What about driving it, or riding it, I should rather say. And I have to say that that's a lot of fun with the speed shifter, or with the 7-speed shifter, with these wide tires for going off-road. I think this is a fantastic bike for that, especially also if you consider the price. And of course the electronic support by the engine is super welcome as well, especially if you want to go up the hill. But then again, basically the only criticism that I have is that the 250 watt motor isn't that strong. But then again, for a little more money on the Engwe website, you can, for example, get the Ep-2 Pro, which I'll also have a video on, and that then has a 750 watt engine that definitely delivers a lot more power. So it really depends on you and what you are looking for. If you don't want to travel up hills with it, then the C20 Pro is, I think, a great solution, because if you're on a flat surface, then the engine is definitely strong enough, and then this bike offers a great feature set and really nice design. And this wraps up my initial review of the Engwe C20 Pro. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. See you next time.